Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Formbird Professionals Fleet Meetup. So it's fantastic to have so many of you here as we continue sharing ideas, tools, and real-world strategies to strengthen how councils manage their fleets. Today's session on risk, not just managing, but using it as a strategic driver for better safety, smarter planning, and stronger compliance. Whether you're here because you're using fleet already, or you're just exploring whether it's a good idea that you would like to look into it. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you. My name's Paul Hosking. Let's get on with it. Okay, so we've got a few things on today. Adams, of course, is going to talk mostly about the risk management. Now, it's important to note that Adam is putting in a bit of a extra time, shall we say, because he's just come off the airplane from Palmerston North. Now, Mark has got a story about Palmerston North. So he's going to give us the news. Mark, why don't you tell us?
Well, the great news is not only did Adam and Ed have a apparently very good and successful trip, we actually have two of our Palmy neighbours on the line. So they can meet everyone either virtually and or through this. As the guys might have seen, and we'll learn over joining these, that a lot of our customers actually will review and look at the video post actual event. But please get involved. It's really important that we kind of know that we're heading in the right direction with these sessions, and it's fantastic to have some fellow New Zealanders join us. I was actually born in Whangarei, and I'm actually wearing my rod and gun shirt in honour of the New Zealand brethren for today.
Can you name one of the highlights, or maybe?
Well, I think that really should go to Adam and Ed, because they are the Palmy North experts. I did hear that Ed went searching for the best Palmy in town, but couldn't find one. So obviously, there's a business opportunity for an Australian to set up a Palmy shop in Palmy.
Let's load up Adam. Okay, Ed, are you there still? He didn't expect to be called out. He's not ready. Okay.
No, you go. Yeah.
Ed, go on. We need to see your face, mate.
I just had to unmute myself.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still in the same room as Adam, so didn't want to talk. But yeah, it's good.
So what were some of the highlights? What were the highlights?
Getting to meet the team over at Palmy. Obviously, spent many hours with them on video calls, so it's very nice to meet everyone, meet the workshop team, meet some of the other higher ups at Palmy. It's really nice, beautiful town. It was a good time. New Zealand.
That's all social stuff. What about the sort of like what actually happened with the integration and any hiccups that that you resolved with your genius?
I don't think we resolved anything. Mostly. Yeah. Lots of work for us to do, but I think good.
And do they have a go live date at the moment?
They're already live. I think the idea is the workshop will be going live at the end of March. My slightly frazzled brain can remember correctly. I'm sure Stephen will tell me otherwise.
On the end of February.
End of February, start of March. That's the one.
Alan was nodding yes, and Stephen was saying February. So we'll let them resolve that one.
Yeah. Okay, well, whoever's in charge down in Palmy, good luck. Let's move on. Adam, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
And if he is, so let's go straight into Adam with he's going to do something about risk management, which I know was a feature that was introduced, I'm not going to say last year, I think it was a year before. And, it's one of these interesting features that we've added to Formbird that's just an add-on, really. So over to you, Adam.
Thanks, Paul. So in the lead up to this meetup, Paul always asks me what the topic's going to be ahead of time, and I wasn't quite sure what we'd talk about in this meetup. So I was kind of looking around in the application and trying to find a bit of functionality in there that maybe hasn't had a lot of take up. So I kind of came upon the risk assessment functionality, and as Paul said, we developed it a few years ago, really with you, Marie. to inbuild some risk assessment functionality. Obviously, like risk management generally is a broad topic and covers every area of the application. From your pre-starts to your telematics systems to your maintenance and repairs. So I think the answer or the problem that we're really trying to solve with this particular bit of risk assessment functionality is those situations where you're modifying a vehicle and need to conduct a risk assessment based on modifications, need to conduct like an annual risk assessment process, or if laws change and you need to conduct a risk assessment on that basis. That's the kind of scenario that I think this functionality has been developed with in mind. So I'll share my screen. Bear with me here. This is always the most slow part. Mark, I might just need you to let me. Thank you. All right. Can everyone see my screen there? Yep. Fantastic. Thank you. So I've just jumped into our new demo environment that we've been playing with and setting up to try and really construct like a cleaner demonstration environment rather than using the development environment. There's a trade-off there, because using the development environment does mean that we get to show off all of the latest stuff that we've been working on, that Paul's been developing. But the downside there for this sort of stuff is that it tends to be a bit more chaotic and cluttered. So we're doing this in the Fleet demo environment. So there's kind of less to look at in here, but it is like a cleaner kind of view for you guys. So the risk assessment functionality within Formbird exists in a couple of different places. So it exists as a work order under a request. So you can set it up that way, and it also exists as a questionnaire off a work order as well. So I'll go through a couple of different examples. Firstly, kind of looking at that request risk assessment work order example, and we'll look at a few different assets to kind of show you the different configuration, and then I'll also show you the questionnaire side of things as well off a repair work order. So I've just kind of cut out some of the middleman here and set up some examples already open. So I'm just going to jump across into these requests that I've already created here. So this one is a mower, and basically this is conducting an annual review of risks associated with the operation of it. Most of this request stuff you guys will be familiar with, so I'm not going to go through each area of the request. I'm going to jump down to the work order section where we can create work orders. You can see here that with a repair request or general request that doesn't have any work orders, it'll default to say, it'll guess basically that you want to create a new repair work order or automatically populate that. But we don't want to in this case. What I want to do here is actually create a new risk assessment work order. I can do my usual things like select my expected start and completion and my assignee. So maybe I'll select, I'll leave it blank. That might be best. And I'll just create that work order. I was going to assign it to myself, but it doesn't look like my account's actually set up to be assignable within this environment. So there I've created my risk assessment work order. You can see it in the table below where all the work orders are displayed for this request. So to jump into that risk assessment work order, I can just hit the link in the name column there. And that takes us into that risk assessment work order. You'll see straight up that it has a lot of the same functionality as the other types of work orders, like your diagnose work order, your repair or general work order, your PM service work order. It allows you to add materials if you wanted to, add work effort if you wanted to, so you can record the time that's spent on it. And it's got a lot of the similar classifications as well. So saying whether it's scheduled or unscheduled, making that classification to feed into your scheduled, unscheduled reporting. And you can do all your usual things like control the expected start and expected completion here. You've got all your usual assignment and status workflows, and you've also got your usual technician's report free text entry fields where they can enter in all of the details about it. But that's kind of where the similarities probably stop, and it has a bit of extra functionality. So within this risk details panel here, below the images section, you can see that we've got some checks appearing. And so these are our risk assessment checks. These are configured in a similar way to your daily driver checks and repair type checks, I guess. In that they are most similar to daily drivers, really, because they really belong to that asset group, component group mapping that controls which checks should appear for which type of asset, to try and make sure that the checks that people have to do actually are applicable to the asset that we're looking at. So we've got a few configured here. So we've got the first one here is that the blade holds its position and doesn't creep down, which can indicate an internal seal failure. And again, this is in the context of an annual risk assessment process. There's no excessive wear on the cutting edge. Some of these things I think could also fall under your PM service maintenance as well, potentially. It'd be interesting to understand a little bit more how you guys probably cut up those things in terms of what falls into regular maintenance and what falls into like this kind of annual risk assessment process. So we can do our usual thing here, and it's got the new component for the daily driver checks. We're also utilizing it here. So I can go through and say what passes and what fails. So maybe this one here, the asset operates in close proximity to the public, fails. And then we can go through and pass the rest. And we can see that bar, similar to the daily drivers, is showing us our progression through the checklist. And then, of course, we can add comments to any failures here. So obviously, mowers operate in built-up areas and potentially in parks where people are present. We also have the opportunity here to identify any other potential risks. So if there's something that where we're not capturing with our checklist at the moment, we can actually add it in here as an additional check. So probably that the guards around the blades are intact and fixed. And then we can click to apply that risk that's been identified to this risk assessment work order. We can hit create risk item, and that'll add it in there. Sorry, that was my mistake there. So to add that in, that's simply added in as a note. So then the next step, based on these failures, is that we want to create some risk items to actually manage those failures. So all the stuff that we're passing, we're saying it's all good, no worries. For the stuff that fails, we want to say create risk items, and that's actually going to go through and create these little entities, these risk item entities, to allow us to look at that risk and actually control that risk. So you can see we've got 3 here. It's got the assessment question, the hazard category, and the hazard comment, so what we entered above. You can see this one here is that additional risk that we identified, and it doesn't have a category because it wasn't a pre-configured risk check. So then we need to go through and actually manage each of those risk items that those failures that we've now seen, and look at that. Oh, we got a little bug here. So we can see here that the hazards identified is there, and our category and our comment. And then we need to give it our usual kind of risk rating. So looking at what the potential for injury and disease is. So member of the public could be struck by stones. We can take images before the control as well. That's just using our standard image upload functionality. And then we've got our list of standard risk control measures. So these can be pre-configured into your system so that they're easily selectable as you're carrying out these risk assessments. So things like distress buttons if people are operating in remote areas, things like updating the vehicle with new pressure requirements for a heavy load. So if the vehicle's been modified in what it carries potentially, dual radio systems, modification plates, all of those sorts of things. It's potential that, we don't have a control already configured. So we can add a new control that we want to use. So maybe it's that we need to actually place signage when we're conducting mowing operations. Operations, ensure that these signs are part of the vehicle kit, I'm going to say. And then we can also add our images after the control and hit save. And that'll save that particular risk assessment item. Well, something seems to have gone a bit wrong here. It's unfortunate. I might just switch environments here to demonstrate this bit. Bear with me. So if we go in here and say what we said before, so risk of stones hitting public, and then click to add that risk that's been identified, and then create the risk item. So that's our risk that we've identified there. Selecting it opens it up. We can give it a category. So this is one that we've added that wasn't already in the system. So we can give this a category. So maybe we say OH&S. We can add a comment about it. So stones may strike members of the public. Injury requiring medical attention. Again, you can add your images before the control. So here, some of what we were seeing before with the bug in the other system was that we need to provide a risk rating beforehand. So, and this matrix can actually be configured based on your environment. So if council has a specific risk matrix that they use, we can actually load that into the system so it appears here. So we can give it a likelihood. So maybe we'll say medium, and then we can give it a injury as well. So we can pick our spot on the matrix. So potentially, it's probably not insignificant injury. I'd say it's kind of possible or likely. I'd say minor injury. I think moderate injury is probably like a fair assessment of what the outcome could be for somebody. Then we've got our standard risk control measures. Again, we don't have any selected at the moment, but I can view my complete list. So in here, we do have signage. So maybe that's one we'll select there. And then, or we can add an additional risk control. So something like ensure signage is part of the vehicle. Trying to type too fast for my own good here. And then you can upload your images after the control, and then put our consequence likelihood assessment here. So, we've put some signage out, so maybe people will steer clear. Maybe that reduces the likelihood of the injury or illness or the impact. So maybe that takes it down to a moderate rating. And then we can hit save there. And then our risk assessment outcome, once we've gone through all of those risk items or failures that we've seen, we can give it a risk assessment outcome and look at whether our controls actually have reduced the risk below the threshold. And so we could say risks are satisfactory here, and then we can hit save. That's kind of the completed risk assessment as it is at the moment. On the configuration side, so where this all sits is within your configuration drop down in your daily driver risk assessment / verifications section. You can configure your check categories here. So we've got a whole lot of different check categories. These are used across daily drivers and risk assessments. And you can, so we've got health and safety here, operator work area, PPE, modification, software even. And we've got our daily driver check questions and then our risk assessment check questions. So these are all of the checks that we might want to configure against a type of asset. And then, so the next part of this is, okay, so how do we apply these to a particular type of asset? So if I just go back to our home page and again, jump into configuration here, I can go into the asset component group mapping. And we can see all of our group mappings here. And again, this environment's designed to be a bit cleaner. So we can go and look at some of our group mappings that have risk assessment checks. So we can see those ones there. We can also sort by this risk assessment check column to see the group mappings that do have checks configured. So we can see here that the heavy vehicle truck does. So things like aftermarket additions are not obscuring the driver's view, that all the cameras and monitors are functioning correctly, that there are no overdue services or safety critical defects in the system, those sort of things. We can see that passenger vehicles configured as well, and that the mower is also configured with checks. And then we can see that the other asset component group mappings aren't configured with those risk assessment checks. So this is really what's driving what checks appear on that risk assessment work order. The other thing actually that I wanted to show you was a few different examples of how those checks populate. So if I jump into this one here, this is for a compactor truck. You can see it's a similar type of thing. If I go down and create my risk assessment work order here, go create work order, jump into it. We can just jump down to our risk details section. So you can see here that these checks are actually different to the previous one. They've been configured differently for the heavy vehicle truck. So we can look at things like, is the vehicle being overworked or underutilized? So this is again in that annual risk assessment process. Verifying that the hydraulic systems are working, verifying that operators that have been using the vehicle have the appropriate and valid competencies. Checking that the safety accessories are actually present and functioning. Again, looking at whether the vehicle operates in high density pedestrian areas, and that there are no overdue services or open safety critical defects in the system. So that annual risk assessment process really gives you the opportunity to check other parts of the system and see whether things are actually getting addressed, and whether, servicing, defect identification processes are actually being followed and resolved as well.
Okay, so the only thing we need to do is to say goodbye and have the parting joke. So the parting joke is, the only thing worse than ignoring risk in fleets would be to let me use a grader. Okay, and... Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And this recording will be up on the website and on YouTube and all that sort of stuff. You can give it a like, and we can become absolutely megastars in the whole YouTubing thing. And thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. See you later.
Bye.